Today's Winter Wonderland Barbie project is her hat. This is made quite a lot like a very simple human hat, except for most of it is doubled. I'm using Mary Maxim Festive Feet sock yarn, which is one of those yarns that has a little bit of stretch built in, so it's excellent for making doll clothes as well as socks. Everything I'm using is leftover from some adult sock patterns I designed. Those are lots of fun, and there are some movies of those for you to watch and knit from. And then I moved on using up the scraps with baby socks. And I still have scraps, so now we are working on doll clothes. Using a sock yarn design for hand knitting on a knitting machine takes a little bit of adjustment of your technique. The main thing is it really needs to be rewound. That and some other finer points are in a video that I will link in the program notes so that you can succeed. For clothing, even doll clothing, you'll want to knit at a little bit looser stitch size than you would for socks, where we want a really firm fabric. Aim for 7 stitches, 10 rows per inch, and yes, of course, you may substitute another sock yarn or really any fingering yarn. The written version of this and the other Winter Wonderland patterns appear in this book, and there will be a link to the page on the website that features this book in the program notes. Cast on 32 stitches. I suggest E-wrapping, but truly any cast on is fine. Now we're just going to knit stockinette, and as always I find it helps a good bit to knit the first 3 rows back from hold. Knit a total of 24 to 34 rows, and here's why you might like a different amount of rows. We're knitting this part of the hat right now, and here the fabric will be doubled. So if you knit 24, as I did for this sample, you will only get a length equal to 12 rows, which hits Barbie here. It's a relatively short hat. Knitting 10 more rows would bring the hat to about here and cover her ears, which, if it were real life, is probably what you would want. There's a little bit of variance in head size and amount of hair from doll to doll, just like in real people, so anywhere in that range may do you. Lift the cast-on edge and hang it on the working needles. Use any method you find comfortable. I'm using the multi-prong tool here, but if you prefer the single-prong tool or even your fingertips, anything that works will do fine. Set the carriage so it will knit back from hold, because that will take a lot of stress off this next row with those doubled stitches. And knit 5 rows at the main stitch size, then stop, turn up the stitch size all the way, and knit a final loose row. That loose row will help with the next step, which is to thread the yarn tail into a yarn needle and right through every stitch in order. The fact that the row was loose just makes it easier to find the stitch and get your needle into it. Every few stitches you can drop those that are already on the gathering thread off the machine to give yourself a little bit more elbow room. Once the work is off of the machine, use the yarn that we just threaded through that final row to gather it in tightly and stitch across the area that's gathered in to secure it. Seam the edges of the knitting together. Backstitching can be good, but really anything will work fine. Do seam the 2 layers separately. It'll be much neater. Seaming them together makes too bulky a seam for a Barbie. When you reach the bottom of the exterior seam, be sure to stitch the fold together really neatly where the fabric turns so it'll look nice at the bottom edge, and then stitch up the inside without making any much fuss. That really won't show. The yarn tail may be hidden between the 2 layers of fabric on the main part of the hat. Turn the hat right side out, and there you go. I'll be back in a few days with another part of the outfit.